So I was thinking about an idea, an image for the first slide. I thought, policy, what could I do? I had a noose, I could have a loaded gun, I could have a bulletproof vest. But I thought, no, actually, IoT policy, especially what we do in the UK, is actually about light bulbs. So what I'm going to talk about is not about fine detail, you must not do this, you must do that, you have to do this. This is about how do we encourage IoT in a nice, light way through what the government is doing. So I'm the technologist for IoT at Innovate UK, so we're the innovation agency. And we look at the world essentially in this sort of tiered format, at you as an individual and you as a business, all the way up to the economy. And how do we rationalize what we do at different levels? Because one intervention at a business may or may not have an intervention at the economy. So things like how do we procure solutions to stimulate industry for government procurement and what we call collaborative research and development, all the way up to this sort of central coordination facility at the economy level, where money actually isn't necessarily what we need. Maybe it is regulation, maybe it is specific policy, maybe it is a flagship something somewhere that helps stimulate that economy, that society, or that environment itself. Now, I want to talk quickly just about what we're doing with IoT UK, and this is central to what IoT policy is. So IoT UK is the UK government's way or attempt to try and wrap their arms around public spending and funding of IoT projects. Now, this is very important because if you look at what constitutes IoT, and I'm going to come to a definition later on, but we have things like smart meters on one hand, we have autonomous vehicles on the other hand, we have energy and energy sensors and climate change sensors and water flow meters and transport data and so forth. Now, a lot of that can be classed as IoT, but it's all traveling at different paces, different rates. So the core premise of IoT is interoperability, right? So if those aspects can't work together, then why is it called IoT in the first place? So IoT UK is a body that is looking to try and pull these areas together to say, okay, well actually, if DFT are doing aspects in smart transport, for example, and DEC are doing things with smart energy grids, perhaps those two things should line up together because actually smart transport is probably going to need smart energy grids, and same with the highways agencies, same with my colleagues at Ordnance Survey and so forth. All these aspects need to feed into what will be a benefit for IoT. So, what is IoT from a real point of view? Well, we have IoT UK from a city point of view. We have things like these pods for transport. We have smart homes. We have BIM. BIM was mentioned before, so BIM level 3 will have an IoT element as well. Things like environmental sensors and temperature sensors, pollution sensors, logistics, and so forth, all the way down to iBeacons. Now, it is confusing for people to understand what is IoT, because for them, is it a gadget? Is it what the Chancellor would call a smart fridge? Is it, what does it involve? So how do we develop a policy that helps enable sectors like buildings, constructions, transport, logistics, and so forth, understand how IoT can help? And we've talked about data sets and so forth, and that's one of the key benefits. So we're talking about data-rich cities. And I know Andrew was mentioned that before, that Transport London, the Greater London Authority, GLA, has a large range of data. And when we look at it from a sort of this Venn diagram, which I like, we have all these sort of data sets for transport, healthcare, and so forth, not just in a city, but around the UK. And that's very key. And each of those industries knows what they do well. They know their data sets well. The transport things know their data sets well. But what IoT really accentuates, and also what we're trying to do with policy, is to try and find these overlaps. Right? These overlaps are areas that are mostly unexplored. These overlaps are areas for growth. These overlaps are where we find real value that is often hidden. And those overlaps are what we try and drive the policy. So this is our definition of, and this is a DCMS and Innovate UK definition of IoT, and it goes beyond what the traditional definition was, which was sort of a network of things, right? So this is where objects connected, and that's a very key point. So there's a connectivity, and it's just any object. But the key thing here is to share data and analysis, or their insights, with people in order to make smarter decisions. So there has to be the creation of the data, some sort of collection around what we do with the data, and some sort of consumption. We have to do something with it. Otherwise, what's the point of all this creating, collecting business if we're not doing something smarter with it? It's here to help us make smart decisions. And so let's look at it from a city point of view. what does IoT in a city, in a buildings environment really look like? And for me, it is about people-centered design. It has to be about people, okay, about citizens, about what people want to call them. So for us, there has to be 4 pillars aligned with this. There's user experience, firstly. So without user experience, you don't have user engagement. Without engagement, you don't have adoption. Without adoption, you don't have a market or any actual use cases or services. So user experience is often left right at the very end. One of my colleagues who's the lead tech on user experience describes it in 3 phases. The first one is the practicality. So this thing does what it says on the tin, right? So I can it's fine. I can use it. The next step is usability. It looks it's functional, and I can kind of use it, but it's pretty horrible. And the third and final stage of the user experience is this desirability. I really want to use it. Look at the smartphones you probably have in your pockets or your hand on the table and so forth, right? It's not just practical, it's not just usable. You've probably chosen it because it's also desirable. The apps you use, the websites you like to frequent for shopping and so forth, they're desirable. And why can't that same principle apply to what we do in a city for people that don't know what IoT is? The next steps are security, privacy, consent. Of course, very, very key topics for IoT. And one area that the government needs to put strong policy around, because without any sort of guidance, we end up with different methods. For example, do we abide by what the US says? Do we go by what European law might have to do? What do we do about consent? What are the rules around this? And that's one area that, if you look at the merger between, for example, hardware and software, if you take Nest, Google Nest product, for example, they take in Nest, which is a product developed here, and then they take in Google's terms and conditions, and they're both linked to them together. Right? So they actually conflict. If you read into them, it says, well, actually, this hardware is unwarranted. This hardware is warranted, the software is unwarranted, but you must update the software if you want to warranty the hardware. So you have this conflicting idea of what trust and these privacy laws are. And so, privacy and consent, especially consent, was designed for human to human. So I have a contract with you regarding the warranty of this product, where I agree to warranty this. But when we talk about machines to machines and machines to humans, well, how do we have contracts with humans? Should 2 machines have contracts with each other? How do they consent about those sort of things? And these are the aspects that help drive what we decide on policy and how we deploy in cities. So I've been designing a cities demonstrator for those know what we do at Innovate UK. And one of the things, and there are 3 aspects where we judge success. And success for us, for IoT in a city, is about, firstly, the benefit for the city, the benefit for the region, and the environment. Okay, so we have our citizens, but there must be it's not just about that city. It's not just a city-centric design. If you look at London, yes, we have a great population in London, but a lot of people commute in and out. So what about the regions around that? And of course, then the environmental impacts of that, of commuting and so forth. So success for us is about those 3 aspects. And it has to be sustainable. There is no point investing public money, for example, into large-scale demonstrators, into IoT, into policy and smarter things, if it is not sustainable. So for success to be sustainable, we need business involvement, we need industries, we need academia, we need public sector, and so forth, in order to make this a real success. As much as we'd like to be driven through public funding and public money, the reality is that is a finite pot. Okay? And more importantly, the challenges are anchored in practicality. So Andrew mentioned things like pollution and crime rates and so forth. Those are challenges that every city will face. One of the things I see at Innovate UK when people come to me and pitch sort of IoT ideas, they pitch what I call marketing or case study ideas. Ones that look great on a glossy magazine or a glossy brochure. Ones that look great on a website. Everyone goes, wow, that has so many billions of trillions of dollars associated with it, huge numbers. The reality is, IoT in a city, and each city will have challenges focused on, say, welfare, housing, energy consumption, resource, utilities, and so forth. And those don't necessarily make attractive case studies. So IoT policy needs to be there to drive challenges anchored in practicality. And of course, we can't just have closed focus innovation, we've got to have open innovation. A lot of what we do in the catapult centers, for example, is all about how do we allow cities to be open for innovation, to be more open for businesses. So taking away, trying to get rid of some of the red tape, trying to de-risk what they're trying to do, to allow businesses to join them and to really explore those innovative challenges.
So what are we doing next? So we've got this Internet of Things cities demonstrator that's running right now, and that's looking at large-scale city-scale deployments, right? So that's a £10 million competition to one single city to try and address some of those challenges that they can identify, and that has to scale up and down. And the aim of that is actually to develop not just a deployment, but this template for success. So if it's going to cost the government £10 million to find out what defines, what helps a city become smarter, then we shouldn't have to spend another £10 million every time, right? That cost should come down, and the benefits should be clear and understandable. And that is really the aim of policy. It's to help pull together these partnerships for businesses, academia, and local authority and public sector, so that we can reduce the cost of success going forwards, so that we end up with these new business models for cities. So cities as data sources and data-rich sources. So I was asked to come up with one final word of advice, one thought to leave you with. And for me, it is this. Make whatever you talk about with IoT relevant for a government minister. Okay, it might sound a bit specific, but if a minister can understand it, and there are no ministers in this room, so I can gladly say that, if a minister can understand it, then the reality is the public can understand it too. And I take that from experience of myself. Ministers don't understand sensors, M2M, Wi-Fi, Zigbee, and all those sort of things, right? They don't understand cloud computing. They don't understand, all those aspects. Lose the term IoT platform. Talk about the real challenges. Talk about impacts to energy, to food production, to transport logistics. Talk about the benefits to a citizen. Talk about how it improves people's lives and their homes and the way they help their elderly parents, for example. Make it relevant. Thank you.